Hi everybody, Kat here. Thanks for joining me today to paint these beautiful little butterflies. I'd like to show you what I'll be using before we start. So I have a few stencils. I don't know if you can see those too well. I think you can. Here, I'll move my paper. So they look like that. And these are bubbles. And this one is a bunch of stars. So I think I'm going to employ those at the end of the painting. If you don't have them, that's okay. I'll show you an alternative. And I am going to be using masking fluid for this first part of the painting. What I recommend is taking a brush you're not that fond of. This masking fluid is Dr. P.H. Martin's Frisket, and it works quite well. It dries kind of yellowy so you can see it. So I take an old bar of soap and I wet my brush, and I will wet it right up to the ferrule. I'll soap it up like that, and then I'll dab that onto a towel so it doesn't drip into my frisket. And I have it here. I put some in here, and I just want to make some dots going from each butterfly. I think it's too wet still. From each butterfly over to the other, like that. If you like, you can swoosh your brush around and gently sprinkle. If you get some where you don't want it, the beauty of this is you just rub it off. You let it dry and rub it off. So if you get some on a butterfly that you weren't intending to, simple. I am using Arches watercolor paper for this project. On my practice project, I'll show you right here, I used my Dollarama paper, and it's just to work up my colors. And I mean, if I had liked the painting better, then I would have stuck with that paper. I didn't like how it turned out. Not because of the paper though, it was because of me. And that's it, I think. I'm gonna put some manual ones in so they're a little bit bigger than the others. Here and there. There. I think that's good enough. As I said, if there's something you don't like before you paint, you say, oh boy, I didn't want that there, then you just rub it out. The second phase, before we actually get to the painting, and you're gonna have to let this dry, I would recommend letting this dry by itself, because masking fluid tends to get pretty gummy if you blow dry it too much. So I am waking up. I have these iridescent paints. Now this is an inexpensive set. I paid maybe $10 for at Michael's. And this is an even cheaper set. It didn't come in this box, but it came in a cardboard box, and it's quite a large pan full of iridescent paints, and these came from the Dollarama, and they work quite well. So you don't have to spend a lot of money on these iridescent paints. What I would spend money on is if you are using gold, and that seems to me to be the clincher. If you want gold, you're going to need to use pigments that are more expensive. That's just been my experience. So again, I'm going to take a cheapy brush, not because it's going to damage my brush, but because when you wet these to wake them up, you need to really stir them around. And don't worry that if you don't use all this, then it will get used. It'll dry up and get used again, just like your watercolor. Okay, so I'm going to paint each butterfly with this iridescent paint. Now, you don't have to if you don't want to, but I really liked on the practice run how this came out. Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to do each butterfly just in the center. And I'm going to allow that to dry. And then when it does, the fun begins. Okay, now that everything's dry, we're on to the fun part. But before we do start that, can I please ask you to take a second, not only to like the video if you like it, but to, in the comments, can you write when you most like to watch the videos? Just simply put the day of the week. That would be most helpful because I plan on, after August, I'm going to start putting out 2 to 3 videos per week. And I would like to know what days are more suitable for my viewers. Okay, on to the fun part. I'm going to take my spray bottle and I'm going to spray around the trail of the butterflies. But I'm also going to add in some water myself. And make sure you cover all the places that your masking fluid was sprinkled on. Now I let this dry for hours because I was out, and but that is certainly not necessary. Probably a half an hour would do, 20 minutes, depending on your masking fluid. Okay, so in the background, I want different shades of blue. So I'm using turquoise, and then I'm using turquoise mixed with what is that called? Cobalt. And then some Antwerp blue as well. And I'm just going to make it sure it's nice and watery when we drop that in. And this is the cobalt. You see the difference in the color? That's cobalt blue hue. That's what mine is called. So back to the turquoise. I didn't mix up enough here. Trying to go close to the butterflies. Don't worry if a little bit gets on. It's kind of nice. And then some of the turquoise and the Antwerp blue mixed, and then some straight, you know, just kind of go back and forth just to give it a variation. Do remember that your paint will dry lighter than you may want it. So be generous with the color if you want it to be darker. Now this would look really neat in a night sky setting, but I'm not going to do that. Just going to pop in a few darks here. Now how I made this dark was the cobalt and a little bit of indigo. I don't really want to use a lot of indigo in the first layer because indigo is semi-opaque. It's not completely transparent. Now, let's get on to the fun butterflies, and I can work in the blues later. I can keep working on this. As long as you keep your paper wet, you can keep working on this. So for this first butterfly, I'm going to be using some bright rose. I also have some quin magenta, which is similar to the bright rose, except that it is a lot more light fast than the bright rose. Now I suggest you put the colors you want to use on your palette, because when you paint over the shimmery paint, it will come back onto your brush. So you don't want that in your palette. Unless you really don't care if all your paints become shimmery. So the water you're working with will become shimmery, and so will the paint on your brush. I don't know if you could see that. So that's just a little warning for you. The blue is coming over this a tiny bit too much. So for this one, I think I'm going to do, now watch this Quin Gold. This Quin Gold is from Core. Look at that. Whoop. All you have to do is touch the paper and it goes shoo, and it's kind of fun. So let's let it do what it wants to do. And I think this one, I'm going to do another shade of pink over here. Not too dark. It'll lighten up. And let it spread, because we're going to be working on these butterflies later. What about some orange? Let's try the orange down here. Just a tiny bit. If you find the paint's going wild, you just gently, don't dab, just let the paper touch your paint. I'm going to put some more Quin Gold here, I think. There we go. And as I said, it's okay if it bleeds out, because this is only our first layer and you kind of want it to bleed out. I'm going to spray this to re-wet everything, because it's still damp, quite wet, but I want it even wetter, because I do need to do a little bit of blue, more blue work. Because you can already see it's starting to dry a lot lighter. I'm going with some cobalt. And it's even okay if you have some white. I wouldn't recommend a lot of white, because then you're masking the spots that you masked out won't be so noticeable. And before this dries, I would like to go in with, I'm going to go in gently with my dioxazine violet. So I'm just going to drop a little bit in here. Look at that shimmer. I hope you can see that. It's so cool. Be careful with this color. It is very strong. You don't want to go in too strong too soon. So when you're working wet on wet and you want the thin line, wherever you want your thin line, that's where you would start. Because when you pick up your brush, you're going to get a ball of paint at the bottom. See? And we want it kind of darker down by that body. And maybe I'll put a little tiny drop in here too by the body. Before this completely dries, I'm using my Viridian Green or Emerald Green. Some sets call it Emerald Green. And I'm adding some Dioxazine Violet to it. Watch. Get this gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous color. Look at that. Yummy. So I'm just going to go right along where the butterflies are kind of like there's it's as if they're leaving behind a trail. It's their trail, you know. So it's nice and creamy, not too watery, because you want this color to kind of stay behind. You don't want it to fade too much. So I have to dry out my brush a little more. Just gives the butterflies some movement, gives the whole painting some movement. Now, I recommend you allow this to dry by itself. Make sure all your edges are nice and soft, unless you really want some hard edges. I do not. So I'm just softening everything here. As I go, if you want to splash some color in there, you can do that too. Sometimes with art paper, you get these white dots, like not from your masking fluid. It's got to do with their sizing, I think, which is kind of a bummer because you pay a lot of money for this this paper. And while this is still damp, I'm just going to put a couple of dots of yellow. And don't fiddle with it, because if you fiddle with it, yellow and blue make green, and that's what you're going to get. I just want a tiny bit here and there, just like that. Ooh, it's so fun. Maybe one there. It is time to stop fiddling. So this is how mine dried. Everything's really nice and soft, and I'm liking it so far. So my next step is I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to add some detail to every butterfly. I won't have you watch the whole thing. Maybe I'll speed it up, but I will do 2 of them up close, and you can see how I do that. Now this is the fun part. So you can choose any old color that you like. I like where this is going, but I do want to add some kind of like this blue here. It's like a bluey green color. Really love this marine blue that I have, so I'm going to try some of this. I just want to do the edges of the wings in this. Just like this. And I practiced on paper that wasn't cotton, and it really does make quite a difference because you can revive the paint that's on your paper a lot faster. On cotton, once it's dry, it's quite secured. It's secured in its space, so if that makes any sense to you. Doesn't wake up as easily. There. Okay, so now I'll know for the next one. Okay, so I'll know for this one. I'm going to wet this one first, now that I know what it's going to look like. Just so it's a slight bit less intense. I can always go back. It's just that if you go in too harsh, too thick, too dark the first time, you really can't remove it too well. So it causes a bit of a mess. So I'm trying to avoid that. See, this one's a lot softer. Let's see if I can get this one to go a little softer. They're just making the edges nice and dreamy soft. They'll just fade off on their own. I'm going to switch to the wing closer to the body, and there I want some dioxazine violet, and here I do want some sharp lines. So I want this wing, I want you to be able to see the edges of this wing and to come up like this. And I will be softening that in a second. Always with a damp brush, not a wet brush. There we go. You can make your butterfly look like anything you want. On, I think it was my practice one that I also filmed, I scratched in some of the veining here, and with an old plastic card. And this right here. very concentrated paint. You can almost make the dioxazine look black. That's how concentrated this paint is. So when I say concentrated, I mean saturated. It's very saturated. Now I am going to just outline this wing. Just like that. And more of this marine blue. There. As I said, you can make these butterflies look any way you like. If you don't like what I'm doing, this would look terrific in a kid's room that like butterflies, or if you have a room, a hobby room. Like it's such a cheerful looking painting. And you can also, as I said earlier in the video, I think I said it anyway, because this is the next day for me, I let it dry overnight, is that you can do the background a little darker, make it look a little more like, say, nighttime, and it would have a whole different look to it. And for this one, I think I'm going to stick to the concentrated. I can't remember if I used Quin Magenta for this. I think I did. So I'm going to do something similar that I did up here. I just want to get the edges in. Softening that. You could do polka dots, you can do anything you like. Softening that up. And I think I'm going to put some dark down here. It does not have to be the same dark. It can be you can choose a different color if you like. I just like leaving some of the edges like lost, soft. They're faded off into the background. Let's see what this Quin, whoops, that was too watery. Let's see what it looks like down on the tails of the butterfly. Oh, that's nice. Maybe I'll do the whole thing like that. Okay, that worked. So the whole reason I started this YouTube channel was to help people fall in love with doing something creative. I like to sew, and there is not a day that goes by that I'm not trying to do something with my hands. I've made soap. I get into everything, and it is a terrific stress reliever, and I really think it's important for us. We humans have a pretty busy life, and there's a lot expected of us, and I really think it's important for people to have an outlet. And you know, mine is not jogging, or I do go to the gym to try to keep myself healthy, but it's not something that I love to do. So if I just wanted people to fall in love with this, and this kind of painting is what that's all about. Like, you just sit here with your imagination, your paints and your imagination, and you just let it all out. Okay, I'm going to leave this for a little bit. I'll check that body, see if I can do this body. So that would be Payne's Gray, and I'll try the purple in that too. See if I can. There. Maybe with that Quin Rose, I'll make a few stripes or something, like a couple of little veins or something like that. And so I got sidetracked, of course, as I usually do. So the reason I don't show any sewing or quilting or anything like that is because when you start a YouTube channel, I learned that they want you to focus on one thing. They don't recommend that you actually do sewing and painting and making soap and, you know, whatever else, crochet. I like to crochet. So I'm new to all this, so I'm learning as I go. So now that you have the idea, I'm going to continue along. I'm not going to be talking though. I'm going to speed it up, and I'll meet you when you're finished too. Meet you back here. Now that everything is completely dry, I'm using a jelly kind of eraser. It was a few bucks. It was nothing expensive, but I do know they sell special ones for removing masking fluid. But this one works fine for me. I'm going to remove all the spots. Now everything is erased, and I don't particularly like this trail, how it turned out, so I may cover that up. I may not. I haven't decided yet. So I just wanted to get into the decorative part and finish off these butterflies. They need a little bit of TLC. I need to work on the bodies to start with. So I'm using some Payne's Gray. And don't be shy to leave some white spaces. Not that you would be shy, but you can leave some white spaces. Just for a bit of highlight, you know, like that. This is one of those works that, it's one of those paintings that it's going to probably occupy a lot of your time if you wanted to. You're going to relax, you're just going to lose yourself in it. Now I would like to add a tiny bit more purple, I think, to this one. Stripes. If you find you can't get the bodies dark enough with the indigo or Payne's Gray, just add a little bit of black into it. Just putting a little bit of black where the shadows would be. Okay. Now I wanted to show you what you can do if your background is dark. What you can do, like here it's quite dark. If my background were darker, I may do it in more places, but for now I'm just going to show you with this one on this spot right here, and it'll give your painting some movement. So I'm wetting a very stiff brush and quickly coming and I'm drying that area with a paper towel and lifting it, and you get these beautiful shapes. And in fact, I think that would have looked nicer in the trails. Right here I have my star stencil, and I'm just going to sporadically place them wherever I feel the painting needs some color. I'm using my marine blue, and I think I mixed in a little bit of the cobalt. And then I use my swirlies, and I use that in the dioxazine purple. And I'm sorry that I sped this part of the video up, but it went well over an hour and a half long. And I think that's way too long for what, I don't think people like to watch videos that long. And I'm just doing my finessing as I do it with every painting at the end. And there's some swirls coming off the flight path. And again, using my iridescent paints for more decor. If you have gel pens, that would work too. And here I'm adding in some gold dots. So I'm going to end this here for the sake of the timing of the video, but the possibilities are really endless. So if all you have is watercolor paints, you don't have any gel pens or pencil crayons or stencils, just play with your paintbrush and your paints. Just do what makes you happy, and you'll reap the benefits. You know, everybody deserves to have some downtime and relaxation time, and I think this is the best way to spend that time. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel. Happy water!